fear as an object of control. Now, of course, we saw during the pandemic how fear was manipulated and billions spent on creating fear to keep mankind under control. I love the Truman Show so much, and it was so clever how they kept Truman from crossing the bridge. If you haven't seen the film The Truman Show, go and watch it. It's a brilliant film, or stream it, or watch it online or something. So basically, they give birth to this child on this TV set. And to control him, to stop him leaving the TV set, they have to build in fears. And these fears create restrictions and controls. And Truman's fear, what they did with him early on in the film or in his life, they put him out into the sea with his father, and his father drowned in the water. And that gave Truman fear just at the right age, and they grew and developed that fear within this human being to stop him crossing the boundaries or crossing the bridge. And eventually he came to realise something was wrong. He thought, what the hell is going on in this place? Something is actually wrong. Something isn't right. Something's not correct. And he realised that he wanted to leave the town where he lived, Happyville or whatever it was called. So eventually Truman concocted a plan because he realised something strange was taking place. And that plan was to cross the river, which he was terrified of crossing the river on the bridge and escape somewhere else. And that's exactly what he planned to do. And eventually he drove a car at high speed, he crossed that bridge, but he didn't escape. He went back to the town he was living in. Anyway, it's not really about that, but it illustrates well how fear is used to manipulate minds. Even as young children, even my 2 young children now, and my older children, my older 4 children, as a parent, you have to use fear at some level to control the child. So, for instance, you'll say to the child, if you walk in the road after you've said this for 10 times, you'll probably get run over by a car. Now, you don't mean, or you're not hoping they'll be run over by a car, of course. But what you are saying to them is, you're trying to build in a fear which they associate with being run over, or as my son would say, squished and squashed by a car. So fear can be a useful tool in the right situation. But fear can also be a terrible tool of manipulation against mankind. Zoomanity has successfully, time and time again, used fear. We're seeing it right now with the war, the Russian war against Ukraine. We saw it all the way through COVID. We saw some shocking things going on in Australia, especially in Canada, where the people who wouldn't get vaccinated were refused, and still refused recently, heart transplants and major operation if they don't have this vaccine. So we can see how fear is used to manipulate mankind. But on a very basic level, fear has been used to manipulate you most of your life. Fear at its most basic is probably the most troublesome kind of fear that you can be fed as a young mind. And that's exactly what Zoomanity does. From the day that you are born to the years it begins to grow, you begin to expand. You go to nursery, you go to school, you go to college, you go to university, you get a job, you have a relationship. Fear is continually being used against you at some level. And the problem with fear is it creates a weaker human being, and a weaker human being will always look somewhere else for salvation. So for instance, if you're in a relationship where somebody is threatening to bash you up and hit you and beat you, you will behave yourself because the fear of being beaten is great. And of course, the second thing with that is, the strange thing about that is, of course, is that fear creates a reliance on salvation from an outside source. And in some of these cases, that outside source can be the threatener. The person threatening to beat that individual can also be seen as their salvation. So it's a good thing to understand fear and to understand what fear does to our minds. The Zoomanity has always been busy, has always been popularizing fear, because it's the greatest way to control you. If you want to get back to life where you feel happier and more settled, you need to begin to question everything. And this everything includes all those restraints from Zoomanity and everything they include. Don't forget, subscribe below, and you'll hear more videos like this. This is Alan from the book Escape from Zoomanity.